I grew up in an ordinary street in an ordinary town near the city of St Albans in Hertfordshire. But at the bottom of the hill near where we lived, there was a river that ran down the east side of the town. I'd play there with my brother after school or at the weekends. It was a place of incredible adventure and discovery. We'd dig in the riverbed looking for lost treasure, discarded bottles or a bicycle wheel. We'd hide in the reeds playing cowboys and Indians. Or we'd race along the riverbank, going as far as we could go, wondering where the river would take us, until we remembered that Mum wanted us back for supper that evening. These were just children's games, but I think it says something about the human heart that's true for adults as much as children. On the one hand, we like safety and security, food in the fridge, friends and family, a bed to sleep in, a door to lock at night. We are very domestic creatures. I think the idea of home is built into us almost like an internal compass. I also think this is why Grand Designs and 100 other TV programs about house building are so popular at the moment. On the other hand, we long for adventure, drama, a little bit of romance. We get very easily bored. The writer Jack London said that the deepest purpose of human life is to live and not just to exist. You see this in all the great road movies. The hero leaves home, willingly or unwillingly, for the freedom of the road. You see this in the great westerns. The cowboy gets on his horse, looking for riches or romance, or both, and rides off into the sunset. It's the mythology of the Greek classics like the Odyssey. It's Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. It's Frodo Baggins in The Lord of the Rings. It's the idea of being on a quest. Let me tell you about my very first memory. I was nearly 3, tucked up in bed, and my dad wakes me in the middle of the night. He picks me up, takes me into the living room and sits me on his lap in front of the TV. I distinctly remember the glow of the TV screen and the darkness of the room. And we're sitting there together, watching these grainy black and white images of the very first moon landing. I think Dad wanted me to be part of this great adventure, even if I didn't fully understand what it meant at the time. To see Neil Armstrong stepping down from the lunar module onto the surface of the moon. To see that there's always something beyond the horizon, something more. He was teaching me never to get too settled or too complacent. There is a restlessness in every human heart. It's good to acknowledge it now and then. I'm searching for something. I'm longing for something more. Now, it doesn't mean I need to pack up my bags and walk out the door. Probably not a good idea. But at least I can give myself permission to look into these longings within my heart and ask myself the question, what am I really searching for?
We used to play a lot of pretend, so we'd ride our bikes around, pretend like we were delivering pizzas or, running away from bad guys or something like that.
Hide and seek. That was literally my favorite game as a child, hide and seek, and I was so good at it because literally I could stay put for like 1 hour and no one would figure out where I was.
I enjoyed playing Barbies, so my sister and I would take our 2 dolls and make a whole house and just decorate it endlessly.
Knockdown Ginger, 40-40 Home, just games where you're running around.
When I was younger, I played Mahjong, so I would play at family events, and it was just a very tactical, strategic game, and I enjoyed the mind games.
Hobbies, football. I was always into sports and athletics. With regards to games, I remember times playing your normal Monopoly, which we still do as today. But, even earlier than that, I can remember things like hopscotch in the school playgrounds. But and I don't know, it or kiss chase or whatever you'd like to call it. But yeah, I think that's about it.
You may have seen videos of the famous marshmallow test that they did at an American university in the early 70s. A child sits at a table with a single marshmallow in front of them, and the adult tells them that they have a choice. They can either eat the marshmallow, but if they wait for 15 minutes without eating it, they'll be given a second marshmallow, and they can eat them both. The adult leaves the room, and you see the agony of these children, one by one, as they try desperately not to eat the marshmallow. You see them staring intently at it, looking up at the ceiling, pretending it's not really there, touching it, picking it up, sniffing it, taking the tiniest nibble from the corner, pretending they're not eating, or just giving up and gulping down the whole lot. It's about self-control and desire, and the experiment was trying to learn what these things say about the human heart. Sometimes desire is uncomplicated. We want food, friendship, freedom, love. We want the things right in front of us. We want the things that we don't have. If you've been fired, you want a new job. If you've lost your keys, you want to find them. If you're practicing for your driving test, you hope that you will pass the first time. But sometimes it's clear that we're searching for something more. The Greek philosopher Aristotle said that we're all searching for happiness, even if we can't agree on where to find it. Now that might sound a bit superficial. Go to Piccadilly Circus in central London and you see those huge digital adverts like giant TV screens. And the main one in the centre, there's an enormous bottle of Coca-Cola with the words "Open Happiness" floating above it. Cross the road, go into McDonald's, and you buy your children a Happy Meal in the hope that it will make them, well, happy. But Aristotle meant something deeper than a chicken McNugget or a bottle of Coke. He believed that true happiness lies in a life that has meaning and purpose. It's to do with the way I live. It's to do with the person I am, and not just with the things I have. How do you know what's really important to you? Well, a simple way is just to look in your diary and then in your wallet. What have you spent your time and your money on in the last week or two? It tells you a lot about your priorities and what you think is the meaning of your life. I did an experiment with a group of students once. I said to them, if you knew the world was going to end in 1 hour, what would you do? Now, I was half joking, but I was also being a little bit serious. The first one said, I'd ring my mum. The next one said, I'd pray. Another one, the cheeky one on the back row, said, I'd go to the pub and get smashed. And another one, obviously with James Bond fantasies, said, I'd steal a helicopter and fly into the sunset. What are we looking for? What is happiness? Well, I don't think there's a simple answer. And maybe if we try too hard looking for it, it'll just disappear. The writer Edith Wharton said, if we could only stop trying to be happy, maybe we could have a pretty good time. But imagine if you only had 1 hour left, or 1 week. What would you do? Who would you call? Where would you go? And when you get your answer, it's worth asking one more question. Is that it? Or is there something more?
I think people are looking for something, well, beliefs they can hold on to, whether it be social beliefs, ideologies that just, keep them going?
I think love and connection with other people. That's what I see. That people want to connect and give their love to something. Maybe more to give it than to receive it, actually.
Love and happiness. And money, unfortunately. It makes life a little bit easier when you've got the money. But yeah, I think at the end, when you're getting older, I think it's got to be love and happiness.
So it might sound a bit cliche, but I think that people are looking for other people and for a lot of appreciation and someone who would listen to them and someone who would support them in what they're doing and someone who they could support as well.
To be fulfilled by perhaps having enough money to live on comfortably, or by happiness, by being in a union with someone, being part of something bigger.
A few years ago, Susan Mousehart and her 3 teenage children did something that they called the experiment, capital T, capital E. For 6 months as a family, they came completely off the grid, a total digital detox. No internet, no Wi-Fi, no video streaming, no music streaming, no smartphones. Normal life went on. They weren't living in a shack in the outback or somewhere, but it wasn't the normal they had known up to that point. You can read about it in her wonderful book, The Winter of Our Disconnect. Now, I wouldn't recommend this to everyone, and look, I love my smartphone. It's just the reality. But I think most of us would admit, most of the time, that we are too busy and too stressed and in need of some kind of detox. We're busy with work or studies. We're busy with family or relationships. And when we're not busy, we're desperately trying to be busy. If there's a gap or some downtime, we're trying to fill the silence with noise and digital distractions. In the UK, adult internet usage is 4 hours per day on average. It goes up to 5 hours for young adults, and in the United States, it's 6 hours per day. We expect instant gratification, an immediate answer from Google, an immediate delivery from Amazon. All 24 episodes of the latest series on Netflix for us to binge watch this weekend. It's like being on water skis. We're going incredibly fast, and maybe we're having a great time, but we have absolutely no control over where the speedboat is taking us. So what can you do? Well, at the Student Centre where I work, we run a few de-stressing activities, especially in the busy exam periods. We have some counselling sessions, some relaxation classes. We play football in the park. And of course, because this is England, we have afternoon tea. This year we did an experiment and we gave out 300 stress balls to the students after church one Sunday, thinking that if all else fails, it's better to throw a small foam object across the room than to throw your laptop out the window. But people are searching for more than just rest and relaxation. There's a real hunger for stillness and silence, to step back from the rush of life and to make space for reflection. It's a human need. I'd even call it a spiritual need. Maybe this is why mindfulness is so popular today. And this is why so many cultures traditionally have had a day of Sabbath, a day of rest. Maybe this is coming back. I heard recently that a supermarket chain is experimenting with a quiet hour on Saturday mornings. They switched the music off. You can still do your shopping, but it's without the noise of the announcements and the music. In the Bible, the prophet Elijah expected to find God in the noise of the wind and the earthquake and the fire. But in the end, Elijah discovered God outside the cave in the sound of sheer silence. In so many religious traditions, there's the symbol of the desert, of leaving the noise of the city and going into the wilderness to get some perspective. It's not about escaping and hiding in another world, but going into the wilderness in order to rediscover the deepest meaning of your own world. This is hard. How can you create little moments of reflection, desert moments, when the kids are screaming and you've just missed the latest deadline at work? I just know that I need at least some stillness and silence in each day, however hard it is to find. A quiet moment before I switch the phone on in the morning. A short prayer before I go to bed in the evening. The poet T.S. Eliot said that there are some things that can only be heard in the stillness between two waves of the sea. I don't know how you personally can press the pause button. It might seem impossible. I just know it's important. This programme, Sycamore, is partly about helping you to make some space to think and reflect, whether you're using it in a group or watching it at home. If it helps, that's great. There's lots more to come. If not, then I hope you can find something else. Don't give up.
I don't read too much of the newspapers these days because it seems to be just so much bad news. And I feel like if I read all the papers, watch the news all the time, I feel depressed. So I think I can, and I think I'm less happy when I don't feel connected to other people, you know? And so talking about being a stay-at-home mum at the moment and, you know, feeling isolated or lonely, I think that can be a real struggle. And because I think happiness is one of those things where if you can find happiness, then even if you're going through a difficulty, if you've got people with you, if you feel supported, if you feel loved, you can go through a difficulty and still feel a sense of this is okay, you know? C.S. Lewis said something along the lines of the fact that while we live on earth, we will always have a longing, we'll always feel kind of restless and unsettled. So he said that that's an indication for us that we're made for heaven. And I've never met anyone on the earth who says they're fully happy with everything. So we're all kind of restless, I think. And St. Augustine, another kind of ancient saint, he said, "Our hearts are restless, Lord, until they rest in you." And I agree with that too. I think that there is a restlessness about us as human beings, but we can find a happiness, we can find a rest on earth to some degree, but ultimately in heaven, I think.